Hey sports fans, are you in the market for Florida sports or just keeping up with the latest in the Panhandle? Palm Tree Sports is a dedicated audio hub to all things sports in the Sunshine State. We cover current events, big news, heavily favored opinions all across the NFL, NBA, MLB, and so much more. So come check us out every Saturday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For a down south education on Florida sports and athletics, it's hosted by yours truly, Corey Pujols, and is powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Palm Tree Sports Radio. My name is Corey Pujols, your host, and as always it is brought to you and powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And speaking of IE Sports Radio, guys, congratulations on 10 years, a full decade of IE Sports Radio. That's right, guys. This week, IE Sports Radio is celebrating its 10-year anniversary. May 15th, 2014 would be the start date of what would now become such a magnificent station that's brought and dedicated to bringing you information regardless of what state you're in, which city you represent. But based off of the city that we represent here as the host, of course, my city, my state would be Tampa, Florida, sunny southeastern Florida to be exact. Guys, listen, I love it here, and I love what I'm able to do here for you guys, bring you this information on a weekly basis. And of course, 10 years is no easy mark. This is 100% all hard work. Shout out to Larry, shout out to Taryn. You guys are fundamental in making this what it is in today's world, in such a juggernaut of a station, again, dedicated to bringing such lively information, guys. It's such a special thing to be a part of. I'm glad to be here. I love it personally. I hope you guys love it too. I can't say enough great things for this place. When I say place, I mean collectively speaking, of course, guys, bear with me. But I'm just honored to be here and be able to share this show with you, this information, this time to be alive with you guys. I look forward to it. And of course, you know, it's not just the station itself that we're celebrating. Of course, this is the peak of what we've been able to accomplish here at IE Sports Radio. But today is also Mother's Day, and I'd be remiss to neglect the mothers on their day. What a wonderful day it is, not just for IE Sports Radio, but for those mothers out there. I'm a father, so I can only imagine what it means to the mothers out there. So just a quick shout out to the mother of my son, Ashley. I love you. I thank you so much for what you do, not just for me, but for our little bundle of joy. Shout out to my mother, my grandmother, and my sister, as well as my aunt and all my lady cousins out there. You guys are all fundamental in making me the man that I have become to this day, and I still learn a ton from you guys, and I just pray that I have many more years to celebrate with you. And also, guys, on a smaller note, for those of you who may not know, which should be everybody, this is also a bit of a special weekend for myself because, guys, I actually just turned 30 on Friday. That's right, my birthday is May 10th of 1994. That would make today, or not today, but this past weekend, exactly 30 years of existence. And, all I want to say about that is thank you, Lord. It's been a blessing to be able to make it this far. A younger version of myself never thought I'd be here. So what an amazing weekend I get to share with you guys, which just brings so much joy, to me, because again, with all this going on, there's just so many great feelings surrounding this weekend, and those three being chief among them. As I'm currently watching Minnesota versus Denver, I'm hoping Minnesota defeating Denver will be another thing to add to that, but it doesn't look that way, guys. If you're watching the game, you know what I'm saying. But yes, thank you guys so much, Larry, Taryn. I really appreciate you guys. You guys, make this thing worth it. And it's like I said, it's such a blessing to be here. I have actually some interesting information to share with you guys. And I look forward to getting into that once we get into the show. But since it's a 10-year anniversary, guys, my bright idea for this show was to kind of live in the past a little bit, while giving you guys some information on what's going on. Obviously, with a lot of our teams here in Florida, we are currently been knocked out of a lot of playoff runs. The NBA, we saw both of our teams get KO'd. Obviously, the Bolts got knocked out by the Panthers in the NHL, so we're going to talk about that as well as the Panthers continue on. The last time I saw they were beating the Bruins. Let's hope that that trend continues. But yeah, guys, when you look in comparison to what 10 years looks and feels like, well, as I mentioned before, guys, I just turned 30, which means 10 years ago I would have been just turning 20. And the reason why that's an interesting concept is because, well, that's life fresh out of high school. And life was much different back then. And that's something I want to look forward to speaking to you guys on. So just a quick synopsis, I guess you could say, as to what life was like in 2014. Well, I was 2 years removed from high school. I graduated high school in 2012, guys. I actually went on into United States military, and I was able to do a little bit of time there before injury cut my time short there. I graduated BCT. Unfortunately, I never made it to AIT. For those of you who are in the military, you know what that means. But life was much different. I had no kids. I had no car. I didn't have a lot of things that I currently have now, which just goes to show the evolution that time brings. And I think that that's very interesting because life in sports was also that way. So let's take a quick look, and let's start with the NFL. Now, for reference, right? The NFL now is in a completely different place, okay? And I want to give you the example of the Super Bowl, okay? Neither one of these two teams are knocking on a Super Bowl door anytime soon, but to who it may concern, in 2014, the Seattle Seahawks defeated the Denver Broncos by an alarming score of 43-8. Guys, I watched this game. I personally am not a Broncos fan, okay? I'm not. I don't appreciate the way that John Elway carries himself as a leader and as a handler of men, and I think that that has shown itself, especially over the last few years, to be not successful. When he had Peyton Manning, they were able to do amazing things in Denver. I was a huge Peyton Manning fan. I thought that the guy is truly a field general, definitely a top 5 quarterback all time in my humble opinion. But this is an example of defense winning championships, okay? The Seahawks had what we call the Legion of Boom at the time. For those of you who remember that defense, it's one of the top 5 greatest defenses probably to ever do it. Next to my 02 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the 85 Chicago Bears, the 76 Raiders, and dare I say the 2000 Ravens would probably be the 5 best defense of all time. Of course, that Tampa Bay, defense from 02 is going to be number 1. I mean, for those of you who know ball, if you go back and you look at that body of work has never been duplicated, and it had never been done before what that team was able to complete. Just in reference to that, the Seattle Seahawks were able to do something that was pretty much unheard of. I believe they picked off Peyton Manning, was it 5 times in that game? It was either 3 or 5. The point being, Seattle came and destroyed Denver in that game. It was absolutely atrocious. It was about as bad as it gets from an offensive perspective. They were unable to do anything the entire game. The Seahawks Legion of Boom defense was absolutely all over the football, flying around. And you had Richard Sherman, Bobby Wagner, what was the other young man? Cam Chancellor, just at some absolute monsters, some units on defense there, and of course the young Russell Wilson in beast mode on offense, able to lead that team to success during the 2014 Super Bowl, guys. And in reference to that, of course, as we're looking to this 2024 season, neither one of those teams are where they were at that time a decade ago. Now we have some other teams, some usual suspects, right, with the Ravens, of course, and other teams like the Eagles, who are hurt but not down and out. Of course, this team has a chance to get back into the limelight, of course, but we have some usual suspects there. And then we have some not so usual suspects, especially for those of you who watched the NFL late last year. You saw teams like Tampa Bay, teams like Detroit, teams like the Texans really come alive and show that success can be found in many different ways. We saw the Texans experience success with a rookie quarterback, making about as deep into the playoffs as a rookie quarterback has ever done. Of course, we were able to see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers rise from the ashes. Of course, I got to put my home team on the map. And of course, Detroit, a team that I basically can't stand. I don't like them. The only thing I like about Detroit is Barry Sanders. But realistically, that's a team that we saw take time through the years, especially the last 2 to 3 years, and really develop their roster, develop in the offseason. And that's something that you have to take respect in because, well, let's be honest, not every team can do it, right? So it just kind of goes to show what a decade can do in a specific sport. And of course, we're gonna continue on that trend as we go through the rest of what Florida sports has to offer for you guys. Unfortunately, it's not going to be a whole lot. As I mentioned, the majority of our teams have been knocked out from postseason contention. It's a heartbreaker, but it happens, guys. But isn't that interesting? 10 years ago, that's what we witnessed in the Super Bowl, was a 43-8 thrashing of Denver and over one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever live. So that's just something that's very interesting when you take in consideration. And then again, from a personal aspect, I was 2 years removed from high school. Young, still very much so living the nightlife. No responsibility to speak of whatsoever. For all you young guys out there, I'm pretty sure you can understand where I'm coming from. But, yeah, and then I would also like to talk about how a decade changes you, right? So, here I am at 30 years of age. I'm a father. I am obviously a son and a brother, to those who it may concern. But more than just that, I think that I'm a beacon. I think that I represent both the epitome of hitting rock bottom and finding success, both solo and as a team. It's something that I look at daily, and I think, how can I improve? What can I do to improve? And I think that's something that comes along as you age. I tell people now here at 30, I feel like a newborn, but I feel like a newborn when it comes to life. Not actually living it, but when it comes to life, truly understanding who I am, my likes, my dislikes, my passions, the things that I don't care for, and all of those different aspects are things that you would learn. And over the last decade, I think I've done more learning than I had the previous 20 years before. So that's just an example of how a decade can change you. As we're celebrating a decade of IE Sports Radio, I think you guys should take time to celebrate yourself. Celebrate the last 10 years of your life. What you learned, look back, write it down, make a book, do something. But take this opportunity to not just realize how life has changed in sports, but in for yourself. I think that is something that we should all do consistently. And I myself am practicing that as we speak, guys. But yeah, so that's what was going on there in the NFL as far as the Super Bowl is concerned for Tampa Bay. To identify more of a specific set of what was going on, guys. In 2014, the Buccaneers went 2-14 under head coach Lovie Smith, the former head coach of the Chicago Bears. What was also interesting is the starters, I should say. Excuse me, my apologies, guys. But the starters for Tampa Bay at the time, at quarterback, if you remember this guy, was one Josh McCown. He had a brother named Luke McCown, both played for Tampa Bay. And, man, what a forgetful guy that was. I hate to say it that way, but, man, if you remember Josh McCown, you probably remember him losing his starting job to pretty much every quarterback that came into Tampa Bay. At the time, we also had Mike Glennon. At running back, we had Dougie Bear, as I used to call him. Everybody else called him Muscle Hamster, but I called him Dougie Bear. Doug Martin, who was an all-time great running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's unfortunate to see how his career went afterwards, but hey, I mean, what he was able to do for Tampa was nothing short of amazing. We also had players like Gerald McCoy, who were still playing. Gerald McCoy is actually a legend in Tampa Bay. One of our greatest defensive linemen. Unfortunately, he just came in during a time where we sucked at playing defense. So that's just kind of what it comes down to. But guys, if you remember 2014, it was definitely a forgetful year for Tampa Bay. The one bright side for us that year, besides Doug Martin, who was actually probably the best player on our team at the time, was Mike Evans. Guys, Mike Evans was, if I remember correctly, a rookie that year. He was either a rookie or in his second year in the NFL. And he was absolutely every bit the guy we thought he was and more. This turned out to be the first amazing pick by our rank 1 GM, Jason Light. And look at all these years later, guys. Look at all these years later. Mike Evans is truly one of the greatest wide receivers in the NFL at the moment, and I think he'll go down as one of the best to ever do it. When you look at what he's been able to do, his body of work since his rookie season speaks for itself. So there's just an analogy, guys, of what a decade change looks like. Since then, we've gone through some interesting quarterbacks. For those of you who may remember some of our quarterbacks, Jameis Winston throwing 30 interceptions in a year. It was a precursor to what would become one of the most beautiful stories ever written in the NFL, and that would be Tom Brady leaving New England and coming here to Tampa Bay. During that time in New England, he had beaten the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I believe, 4 separate times. He had never lost to Tampa Bay. And so he came over to a team that he never lost to and helped us win. I don't say make us, but helped us win a Super Bowl. And I think that he obviously was the biggest difference. But it's just something else that shows in differential between, again, that 10-year period. Man, what a far cry we are from Josh McCown. So that's something that's very interesting in regards to that. 10 years ago. Also 10 years ago here in Tampa Bay, the Rays would go 77-85, finishing 4th in the AL East. At the time, our general manager was Joe Madden, for those of you who remember him. A Tampa Bay legend, a guy that we all love here in Tampa Bay, somebody that is not easily forgotten. This was during the time where we had Ben Zobrist and Longoria. Evan Longoria was playing for Tampa Bay still. So just a very interesting time to be a Tampa Bay Rays fan. This wasn't the worst team in the AL, but clearly not the best team either. Kind of a forgetful year, if you will, but still a year that, you know, featured some guys. Jose Molina was another one, guys, if you guys remember that name. It just kind of shows you, again, the evolution that we have experienced. Again, a far cry from the way that team was 10 years ago. Last year, our team set a record as far as opening wins from the start of the season. And now, obviously, this team's dealing with a lot of injuries, and that's something we'll talk a little bit more about as well. But, guys, it's so different now. The team still plays in the same area at Tropicana Field, but as time would have it, this team is actually going to stay in St. Petersburg at Tropicana Field, and that's not that they won't be coming to Tampa Bay, unfortunately. For those of you who follow baseball and have noticed that about Tampa Bay, that even though it's the Tampa Bay Rays, they play in St. Petersburg, they will not be coming to Tampa Bay. Unfortunately, there's just no space. That's what it comes down from a bird's eye view as somebody who is in Tampa on a daily basis. I can tell you that's the reason. You can hear whatever reason you want. The truth is there's no space in Tampa. Tampa's just, it's too crowded now. There's no space. So yeah, but that's the interesting part from the MLB perspective. For one more perspective, I'm going to give you a basketball perspective. Guys, in 2014, okay, the Miami Heat would go on to get swept, if I remember correctly, by the San Antonio Spurs. Now, the reason why this is very interesting is because this was the first year that LeBron James had, well, how can I say this? That was the first time we saw LeBron get swept with a team, right? Like, not get swept by himself like it was when he was in Cleveland. This was a heartbreaking sweep. Now, the San Antonio Spurs would go on to collect their 5th ring during that time, of course. And what a phenomenal basketball team that was. Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Danny Green, Kawhi Leonard, just to name a couple of guys if you were wondering who was on that team. And, of course, Greg Popovich was the head coach. One of the greatest coaches to ever do it in basketball history. So, there's no shame in that. But at the time, LeBron was shouldering so much that it was such a crazy time to be a basketball fan. And that's really the only way I know how to put it, especially being a Miami Heat fan, being a LeBron James fan, guys. So for those of you who remember that, that's an example of what the NBA was like during 2014. What an exciting time for basketball, though. Those were not the only 2 good teams that were out there. Those were the 2 best teams for sure. But if you guys also remember during that time, the Oklahoma City Thunder had Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook all on the same team. The East was, well, the East kind of went through LeBron at that time, all right? The East just went through LeBron at that time, and yes, the league was different, but a lot of those stars that you were accustomed to seeing during that time frame are all people that are going to be in the Hall of Fame soon enough. As I mentioned before, that starting 5 by the Spurs was a who's who of a starting 5, and I wouldn't be surprised to see all 5 of those guys in the NBA Hall of Fame at some point into the future. So yeah. You know, I really hope that really puts into perception how things have changed over the last decade, and especially how it affects sports. But that's enough reminiscing for the time being. Let's go ahead and get into our first break of the evening, and when I get back, we'll go ahead and talk about what's going on in the NBA currently with Florida teams, as well as the MLB. We'll talk a little bit about the Lady Gators, that they were able to win their SEC championship this past weekend, and then as well, we'll wrap things up with the NHL and give you a couple other tidbits on what life was like a decade ago. But until then, guys, keep it locked here at Palm Tree Sports Radio. My name is Corey Pujols, your host, and as always, it is brought to you and powered by IE Sports Radio. You're going to hear me say this a couple times, but congratulations to IE Sports Radio on a decade. Let's get into that first break. Keep it locked here, guys. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy, Dentarius Locke.
And we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That give you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
Welcome back to Palm Tree Sports Radio, you guys. My name is Corey Pujols, your host, and as always, it is brought to you and powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, guys. Again, happy 10-year anniversary to IE Sports Radio. It's never going to get old, guys. Again, what a wonderful time here to be at IE Sports Radio, here doing Palm Tree Sports, guys. It's such a blessing. Dad, I see you. Please be careful getting home. And Miss Jen B, it is wonderful to have you here on the show. Happy 10-year anniversary to us collectively as a whole, guys. It's such a wonderful thing to be a part of. I know I'm stumbling over my words, but this is a big deal. You know, it's not every day you get to be a part of something like this, and I'm just kind of relishing in the moment, guys. Now, 10 years ago, 2014, right? Well, for the record, guys, I started here at IE Sports Radio almost 2 years ago. I'm actually approaching my 2-year anniversary as we speak, guys. My 2-year anniversary will be later this year in August. It was early August. I can't remember the exact day. I wasn't able to pinpoint that part, but I can tell you it was early August 2022 when I started my journey here in IE Sports Radio, starting the show with Larry, of course, with his help, but starting the show now known to you guys as Palm Tree Sports Radio. And, you know, approaching 2 years is one of those aspects of life that you really look at something, you say, dang, okay, this is what I do. You know, I just imagine you work somewhere for 2 years, right? I have been working for Hertz Rent-A-Car for well over 2 years now. At the 2-year mark, you're kind of telling yourself, yeah, I know what I'm doing here. You know, like, of course, there are things that you can learn, there are things that you can perfect, but you also know, hey, I'm doing what I do, because this is what I do. And I think that's an example of what's going on here at Palm Tree Sports Radio. I personally love this, and this isn't something that I knew that I would love, but this journey so far it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. And it's something that I wouldn't hesitate to do again if I had to rewind the clock. I know we would all change things in our past, but this is not one of those things. And I think that that's just a beautiful feeling to have. I'm sure plenty of you feel the same way as I do, and that's just something else to take in consideration, especially when you've been doing something for a while. But 2 years is nothing but a drop in the bucket of a 10-year anniversary, again, that we're celebrating. So congratulations to IE Sports Radio one more time. Now, guys, as far as the information that I have for you guys, as far as the new information, things that you guys may not have been noticing, not as much, right? Obviously, we watched in the NBA both the Magic and the Heat get knocked out. They both got KO'd out of the playoffs. The Magic put up a hell of a fight. I'm so very proud of the Magic, so I'm going to focus a little bit more on them than the Heat. For obvious reasons, the Heat missed the playoffs, or not missed the playoffs, but their playoff series has ended in a 4-1 wrapping up against the Celtics. Unfortunately, the Heat just were never able to stay healthy. Lost some key pieces on the offseason. Thought they were going to get Damian Lillard. Were unable to do so. And now we kind of see the result of it. Jesus Christ, Jerry. My apologies, guys. JB, Jimmy Buckets was unable to carry this team. Unfortunately, he suffered a serious injury just before the series against the Celtics. We got a game. That's all we were able to get. It's unfortunate, but we understand that these things happen, and also on the back end of the injuries that we've been dealing with between Tyler, between JB, and just the inability to stay healthy was definitely the plague of this Miami Heat team. Much to the chagrin of the other Florida team, the Orlando Magic, this team was able to stay healthy, but they're very young and they're missing a lot of firepower. What do you mean, Corey? Well, Paolo Banchero is a star. He's a stud. He is everything that we think he is. Okay? There's just one problem. He can't do it by himself, guys. This team, Orlando, very young team, a lot of upside. Has to get better against veteran teams. Okay? And it's very much so just that simple. They've got to get better against teams that possess veteran 1, 2, or 3 punches. And they just have to do a better job defensively, especially in transition when those teams really get the momentum going. That's when they struggled against the Cavaliers, making it a dogfight but losing the series 4-3. Again, very proud of what the Magic were able to accomplish this year. Unfortunately, still a bit too young to get past a team like the Cavs. Just like the Heat, unfortunately, we're not able to get past the Celtics. Now, the Celtics are the usual suspects in the NBA on the Eastern Conference side. This is a team that regularly finds itself in the playoff at a 1 or 2 seed. It's just the way Boston is. I mean, I don't know how else to look at it. This is a team that's been in the playoffs as probably more than maybe any other team, to be honest with you, aside from the Lakers. Realistically, you get used to it. And that's the point that I'm trying to make. The Heat, too riddled with injuries again, as I mentioned before. But to who it may concern, the Heat did lose that series in a 4-1 record as far as the ball games were concerned. Obviously, they were able to get 1 W, but they couldn't stay alive after that. 118-84 be the score of the final game in Game 5. Again, injuries killed this team. That's just all there really is to say about Miami right now. They're going to have to go back to the drawing board. They're going to have to make some serious offseason changes. They're going to have to work in some strength and conditioning, especially those who are unable to stay healthy. JB has got to nurse this injury, and hopefully he can nurse it back before things get into the swing of the full offseason, the training, the extra work that they do individually speaking. For those of you who have watched basketball for a long time, you know that that's pretty much what the greats do, especially the late, great Kobe Bryant. Rest in peace to him. Even LeBron and those guys that we see during the offseason that are going to go play for Team USA in the Summer Olympics, that's a perfect example of just staying basketball ready, staying in shape, if you will, and I think that's an example of what Miami is going to need to do. Unfortunately, they're also going to have to work some off-season additions into that team. They need more firepower. They need more help. It can't just be JB and Bam Adebayo. Others are going to have to step up, and they're going to have to be great. That's just what it comes down to. The Magic, on the other hand, again, what they're going to do in the offseason is just continue to build on the continuity and just get a little bit more firepower in there. Maybe 1 or 2 guys, somebody who can really come off the bench and put in some serious work would help. And then just another high-level star or starter-esque type player to come in and help take the pressure off of Paulo Banchero. If you guys look across the NBA right now, there are a lot of teams who are abusing the 1 and 2 man games and just having really, really, really good players, spot players that can come in, hit shots, play defense, come off the bench, get you 14 points, get you 16 points, whatever the case may be, but do it consistently. As we're currently watching the Minnesota versus the Nuggets, these are 2 examples of that. The Nuggets, listen, For those of you who like the Nuggets, that's all you. I don't like them. I don't like the Nuggets. I think that Murray is absolutely one of the best young players in the NBA right now. The guy's absolutely a wizard over at the PG. But when I look at, when I look at the rest of this team, they're just spoiled rotten. KCP, Aaron Gordon, Porter Jr., and of course our now 3-time MVP. It's hard to look at this team and see a whole, right? But the truth to the matter is, this is a team that has received a lot of help, okay? They get a lot of love, and we can't act like we don't see it, all right? Right now they're playing a team who is very, very good, but very inconsistent at times, okay? In the Timberwolves, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Ant Edwards is playing like a man possessed. The guy might actually be the best basketball player in the playoffs right now, okay? You can argue with a wall. The kid's playing phenomenal, okay? And obviously he's got Karl Anthony Towns with him, okay? And this is another example of a 1-2 punch that's playing tremendous basketball. The problem is when Cat isn't playing well, Cat isn't playing well, the team pretty much just falls, okay? For them to find success, that's what they're going to have to do. There's pretty much no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I think that it's important for us to really pay attention to this series because this is an example, again, of two 1-2 punch teams finding success, whether they're young or not. And I think that's what Orlando needs to do. They need to find somebody that they can put next to Paulo, somebody that can really help take the pressure off of him so that they feed off of each other to find success, both in the paint and outside the paint. Paulo can do it all, but of course we're going to want him to play towards his strength, and that's an example of what I'm looking for to what the Orlando Magic can, do as far as getting that 1-2 punch going. Again, these are two great teams to sit here and look at and identify pattern of success. And I think that's basically what it comes down to for Orlando is they're going to have to develop a pattern of success through having two stars that can cohesively play together. That's what I think. It's very much so that simple. We'll have to wait and see what kind of decisions they make. Again, Paulo Banchero is an absolute wizard. A Game 7 loss against the Cavs isn't any way to hang your head. 106-94 would be the score of that ball game. But again, unfortunately, that brings an end to both of our team's season. And, we'll just have to wait and see what they do in the offseason, okay? I know I've kind of harped on it a lot, but I'm very happy with what these teams were able to accomplish. But they're going to have to put some serious work in the offseason if they're trying to make it past the first round of the playoffs. And it's that simple, guys. For the Rays, all right, as we move on into the MLB, guys, our Rays were starting to catch fire, and then they just decided not to anymore. I mean, I don't know. Watching this team play is a lot like watching a great high school football player play football. They're going to play tremendous football, and there's just going to be times where they just beat themselves. And I mean beat the crap out of themselves, guys. And that's what our Rays are doing, our beloved Tampa Bay Rays. And unfortunately, the jersey change doesn't change much. I love the jerseys. They're absolutely phenomenal. They're not better than our original Devil Rays jerseys, but they are still wonderful jerseys. If you haven't seen them, go take a look at them. Could be the best jerseys in all of baseball at the moment. But I love them. I personally love them. Unfortunately, it really hasn't changed much. This team has been dealing with injuries since before the season started. That really hasn't changed. Excuse me, my apologies, guys. We're going to have a ton of help coming back shortly within the next few days. But until that happens and until it shows itself on the mound, this team is going to be relegated to a 500 team at best, which is what they're sitting at. For those of you who did not know, the Rays are rocking a 20-21 record. They lost their series to the Yankees by losing the final game of that series today. 10-6 was the score of that ball game. Nothing very memorable for the Rays in this Yankees series in comparison to others. Taj Brantley, he started his first game this season against the Rays, his old team. That was the only game we won. A little fit of payback or revenge, whatever you want to call it. But aside from that, pretty miserable. I mean, the Rays are 1-3 in the last 4. They go to see the Red Sox, who are actually right above us right now, sitting at 21-19 in the AL East. I don't know what to make of it. The Rays are going to have to win this series if they're going to have any shot of trying to get onto the right path. But losing a series to the Red Sox right now would potentially it would be hard. It would be hard for this team. And I think that's something that we need to take in consideration as Rays fans. You know, this series is going to tell us a lot about what's going to happen moving forward. And, of course, the way we've played against Chicago, who are the worst teams in the MLB, there's no excuse for it, guys. There's just no excuse for it. So, Rays, got to get healthy, got to stay healthy, and got to play good baseball, guys. You got to play better baseball offensively and pitching-wise. All right, defensively, what do you want me to say? Like, they're playing terribly? No, they're not. But it kind of sucks when you're giving up 10 runs. I mean, hard to win games that way, guys. That's all I can really say when it comes to that. It's hard to win games that way. But the next series, again, going to be against the Red Sox. That series starts tomorrow, 7:10 p.m. If you're looking for some Rays baseball, that's going to be time to check it out. I'm going to be watching that up until Monday Night Raw starts, and then I'm going to be flipping back and forth between the two. If I can watch the game, if they don't air the game on my channel, then I won't be able to watch it. I'll be tracking it on ESPN, ESPN or SportsCenter, whichever one pops up. But that'll be what I do. I encourage you guys to do the same. But again, Rays, kind of forgetful right now. Just kind of forgetful right now, guys. They're still trying to get healthy, but until they're able to do that, no bueno. No bueno, guys. Let's go ahead and get into our second break of the evening. When I get back, we'll start to get ready to close things up. We'll reminisce a little bit more on what a decade has done for us and to us. And then I'll send you guys on your way with some food for thought as you guys get ready to start your following work week. All right, guys, keep it locked here at Palm Tree Sports Radio. My name is Corey Pools, your host. And as always, it is brought to you and powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Are you a fan of Buffalo sports? Are you thinking of changing loyalties and becoming a Buffalo sports fan? Do you even know where Buffalo is on the map? Did you know Canada is closer to Buffalo than New York City? Welcome to the Buffalo Huddle, every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Patty Bax. This is a podcast designed for you, the passionate sports fan. I know you love your sports. Who doesn't? I cover Buffalo sports and so much more by bringing in the human elements. I call it Buffalo sports with a twist. Join me as we take a journey into the world of Buffalo sports. I guarantee you'll fall in love with Buffalo just like I did. Each week we start with an inspiration, question of the day, a Buffalo fun fact, and our weekly challenge to you, the listener. Come huddle up with me every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time for the Buffalo Huddle with Patty Bax on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. As we say in Buffalo, go Bills!
Welcome back, everybody, to Palm Tree Sports Radio. My name is Corey Pools, your host, and as always, it is brought to you by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. IE Sports Radio celebrating its 10-year anniversary. Congratulations again to IE Sports Radio on such a wonderful, momentous occasion. And so, a decade, right? So, we did a little bit of time jumping to the past. Let's do that again. Let's talk about what the NBA, or my apologies, not the NBA, but the MLB and the NHL were like 10 years ago, guys. So, for those of you who watch baseball and are familiar with what life was like in the MLB back in 2014, Giants, Giants, Giants. I mean, San Francisco was on an absolute tear during this time frame. They would beat the Royals 4-3, winning their third World Series within 5 years and their 8th overall World Series. Guys, if you're living in San Francisco, 2014 was your time. All right? Realistically, the 2010s was your time. I mean, in 2013, I believe it was, San Francisco made it all the way to the Super Bowl, played the first brother versus brother head coaching Super Bowl, the Ravens versus the Giants, the 49ers, the Harbaughs, Jim and John Harbaugh, to be exact, if you guys remember that. What a Super Bowl it was. Ray Lewis retired after that Super Bowl. And so, yeah, if you were in San Francisco, you were loving sports, all right? Like, I can't tell you how amazing it was to be in San Francisco during that time, especially the early part of that decade. And that's just an example of it. Again, the Giants beat the Royals 4-3, winning their third World Series within 5 years and their 8th overall World Series. I was rooting for San Francisco, obviously. I don't have anything really against the Royals, but I'm not the biggest Royals fan in comparison. So, obviously I was going to have to pull for the team that I preferred, and that would be the Giants. So, guys, that's what it was like in the MLB. In the NHL, the then Los Angeles Kings defeated the New York Rangers 4-1 for their Stanley Cup, their second Stanley Cup victory. California. I was trying to find another way to phrase it, but California. All right. I think that, it was a great time, obviously, like I said, to be a fan of what California sports was offering, and I think that's just an example of it. You really can't do it too much better than that, I don't think, right? 3 out of 4, 3 out of 5, I would say, sports. California was just dominant. California was a dominant state. And so, in comparison to now, right, obviously, with the NHL, we just had, Las Vegas, the Golden Knights. They just won the World Series last year. Okay, so there's that. Or not World Series, but the Stanley Cup. My apologies. And then, of course, with the with MLB, the Giants, they've fallen. They've fallen, and they can't get up. They need life alert. Okay, they've needed life alert. Maybe they may not need it immediately, but you get what I'm saying. The Giants are far cry from the team that they were when they were playing baseball that well. The Royals, same, sort of. I mean, the Royals were a great team. They've always been a good team. I don't think they've ever really not been a good team. But there's levels to how good that team is. Similar to the Dodgers, similar to the Yankees. There's just levels to how good that the team really is at the time. I say that to say, I don't think we're going to see that World Series anytime soon again. I guess that would be the right way to look at it, right? So I don't see that series matchup happening in the World Series again anytime soon. When you look at baseball right now, obviously the Yankees are playing pretty well at the moment. They're not the only team, but that was just an example of how the tables have turned. I think that we will have to wait and see a little bit further into the season before we really start to see who's going to separate themselves from the pack. And I say that because I truly feel that it's just too early. I truly feel that it's just too early to determine, who the best team in baseball is. That's not the case for hockey. On the opposite end of hockey, we're looking at it and we're saying, okay, we have two absolute powerhouses going against each other. Thank you, Dad, for putting that score into the mix for us. The Florida Panthers defeated the Boston Bruins 3-2. That breaking news from my old man, so I appreciate it, Dad. They go up 3-1 with the chance to end this series. Well, what is it, in 2 days? Is it? The next game is played, I think it is. I got to go back and look, but I believe that it is. Yep, in 2 days, May 14th, the Bruins will have a chance to stay alive, but the Panthers also have a chance to end this series. Again, that's going to be May 14th, 7 p.m. So, guys, here's the deal. I don't even think Florida was that relevant in 2014 as far as hockey is concerned. Now, obviously, we played good hockey, okay? The Florida Panthers, Tampa Bay Bolts. But I don't think that we were as good as we are now, okay, against these same teams, okay? I think that's really what it comes down to. I don't know. I would say it could just be the Florida and me talking, guys, but I think the Panthers are the best team in the NHL right now. As far as the playoffs are concerned, I know what the records say, but I'm just talking about on cohesiveness, just flat out getting on the ice and playing hockey. Florida has been a juggernaut all year long. They're even more so of a juggernaut now here in the playoffs. They're zoned in. They're playing great hockey. I just don't think that any other team one-on-one has a chance to stop the Panthers. Okay, I don't think that's the case at all. I think that they're showing that right now in the series against the Bruins. Oh, man. Yeah, that's my thought process. I mean, look, here's the rest of the details for you, okay? Again, they were able to defeat the Bruins 3-2 tonight. The next game is going to be played in 2 days. They've won the last two after losing the opening game to the Bruins. They've really stabilized themselves, winning 3 in a row in this series. It's been behind tremendous defense and very, very well-timed goals. What does that mean? Well, when you play hockey as a team and you play extremely well the way that the Panthers have been playing, you start to realize it's not individuals who are making the game easier. It's literally the team just literally communicating on the ice, off the ice, verbally, physically, just manhandling each team that they come up against. And I think this is a perfect example of the Bruins are an absolute juggernaut in hockey. And I don't think that this game goes any other way if they're playing less team hockey. I'm not maybe speaking as clear as I'd like to, but realistically it's because now that we're this deep into the playoffs, you start looking at the teams that are separating themselves. I think the Florida Panthers have separated themselves the most. That's just basically what I'm getting at here. So congratulations on another victory today, Florida. Keep it up. 2 days away, 2 sleeps away from a possible knocking out of Boston, which would just be very huge for us. I don't think there's any other way to put it. I think for Florida that would be an absolute momentum shifter as far as where they were coming from to where they're headed. And I think that Florida is the best team in hockey right now. I think that they are. I think that's the best team in hockey. It's just my opinion. But again, a far cry from where we were a decade ago with the Florida Panthers and the Lightning Bolts, guys. Just take that in consideration. Congratulations again to them on a huge victory. Now, a special shout out, okay? A special shout out to our Lady Gators, okay? So, in softball and baseball, the Florida Gators have, within the last decade, actually, laid claim to their first World Series victories, both for the men and for the women. And for the women, they just took another step closer in course correction of a World Series victory for them. In defeating Missouri, they were able to knock out the Zoo in the SEC championship game by a score of 6-1. So congratulations to our Lady Gators. They finished this season 45-12, going 17-7 in SEC play. That's good enough for a rank 2 in softball, which is a very solid rank 2. I actually got to see the rank 1 team play, and they've got a really nice pitcher. They've got a really good pitcher. That's what it comes down to, guys. But our Lady Gators are going to continue on in the playoffs. Again, like I said, after knocking off the Zoo. The Zoo, no slouch. They come in rank 5 with a 43-14 record. Unfortunately, their SEC record is kind of what did them in at a 13-11 record, and it kind of showed here against the Lady Gators again. So, I again congratulate our Lady Gators on a phenomenal series victory against the Zoo, and I look forward to seeing what they're able to do moving forward, guys. I wish you all the best of luck, and I pray that you guys are able to bring home another World Series victory. Only time will tell, but we'll get to see soon enough, guys. So that was the special shout out to our Lady Gators. And of course, with the Rays, of course, getting ready to take on the Red Sox. Now is a great time to talk about that because, again, I don't know what's going to happen moving forward for the Rays, but I do think that it's a big deal and something else that we're going to have to pay attention to moving forward. In comparison to the Rays is our Lady Gators. Our Gators baseball team, the males, they're also doing relatively good. They're doing what they can. They've got to kind of pick it up, and they've got to play tremendous baseball moving forward. But if they can continue to do that, they'll find themselves, hopefully, back in the World Series again. Far cry from that, though. We'll have to see how that team continues to play, guys. But again, back to the NHL real quick. If you guys were looking at that game, as I mentioned before, will be played Tuesday, May 14th at 7 p.m. Go check that game up if you're not doing anything on Tuesday. See if the Panthers can close out this series, all right, against the Bruins. And that's basically what I have for you guys. Listen, it's been a wonderful show, a wonderful time to enjoy a 10-year anniversary here on IE Sports Radio. I personally can't thank Larry and Taryn enough. Those guys do the most behind the scenes. For those of you who were wondering how this whole thing stays together, those guys work overtime and they are tremendous for us. They also host absolutely phenomenal shows. Of course, if you haven't heard of those shows, 3 and Out College Edition, Larry B, go check those out. Obviously, Taryn has his finger in everything. All right, so if you guys have not checked out any of his shows, that's going to be something that I would greatly encourage you to do. Southern Cal be his spot of expertise, if you will. So if you, again, haven't checked out their shows, please go do. They're always dropping bombs. They're always dropping knowledge. And, of course, you'll get to catch some of us also on their shows when the time comes for compare and contrast between alike teams, whether it be the NFL, the MLB, the NHL, you name it. We're in it, guys. Go check out their shows. I promise you guys won't be let down. But my show, Palm Tree Sports Radio, is coming to a head, guys. Thank you guys so much for joining me here on Palm Tree Sports. I see you guys in the comments. Yeah, Dad, I'm actually watching the game right now. I'm watching the game. What can I say? They got help. They played tremendous game, did the Nuggets. Unfortunately, Minnesota was never really able to bring themselves back into the game. Right now, they're going to have to hit some crazy shots and play some serious defense if they're going to be able to, make this game any kind of close. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like they're going to be able to do that. This series is going to head back to Denver, tied at 2. It sucks. I hope Minnesota's able to pull it out, but, only time will tell. They're going to have to do it, and they're going to have to do it expeditiously with these next couple of games being in Denver. But, yeah, absolutely, you guys, again, thank you so much for joining me here on Palm Tree Sports Radio. I really appreciate the love. I really appreciate the support. I look forward to supporting everybody else in IE Sports Radio as you guys have done for me. And, again, one final time, congratulations to IE Sports Radio on 10 years of absolute amazing content coming your way, guys. I just hope that we're able to continue to bring you that content. I look forward to bringing you same time, same place next week. Catch me every Sunday evening at 9 p.m. I will see you guys on the next one. And again, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Mom, sis, Ash, I love you guys. My love goes out to you guys. And again, to IE Sports Radio for having us here. My 2 years is approaching, and I look forward to talking to you guys about that, and I look forward to being here 10 years later talking to you guys about the 20-year anniversary of IE Sports Radio, guys. Until then, my name has been Corey Pools, your host, and as always, is brought to you and powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, guys. Send some love to your mothers if you haven't done that. Get ready for the work week. Take care of yourselves. Drink water. Of course, it's only getting hotter out there. And I live in Central Florida, so let me tell you, it's hot. We're talking 100 degrees hot, guys. So stay hydrated. Take care of yourselves. I will see you all same time, same place next week. Until then, peace.